Hello.
Morning, everyone.
Can you okay?
What fabulous lighting you've got. We definitely need to do some work on the lighting in our room. We definitely picked one with an open window and light, but it seems darker than anywhere else.
Yeah, it does make it look like you're being interrogated when you've got a window behind you like that sometimes, to be fair. What we'll do, we'll just probably wait a couple of more minutes just to see, obviously, if there's any late arrivals, and then we'll get kicked off. But yeah, I just want to kind of welcome everyone to joining our webinar, and thank you for attending. As you can see, we've got Louis and Kenny. They'll do their own intros shortly, but they're basically going to run through our webinar, AI and You, a proven process on integrating AI into your business. So I hope, and I'm sure you will, find it all very informative. The webinar will probably last about 45 minutes, 50 minutes-ish, and then we'll have kind of 10 minutes at the end for any questions. At that time, I'll just ask you guys, if you do have any questions, if you can just drop them in the chat. And then obviously I'll read them out to the guys and they can answer them from there. So we'll probably just give it another minute and then I'll hand over to Louis and Kenny and they can get things rolling.
Thanks, Holly.
No problem. It's only 10:02. There's a few more people still dropping in, but yeah, given the time, we might have to crack on shortly. I think it is being recorded, to be fair, so we can obviously always share it after on our socials, etc., for people to watch back. Shall we probably just get going? 'Cause it's 3 minutes past. What do you think?
Yeah, we'll get started. Yeah,
cool.
Great.
All right, guys. Thank you.
Cheers, Holly. Thanks. Cool. Morning, everyone. So I'll do a quick intro. So I'm Louis Giorgio. I've worked in UX and tech for getting up to 30 years. I was a founder of an agency called Code 25 years ago, actually, to this week. And then we actually joined EssenceMediacom in 2016. And I still have a dual role. I head up the creative futures discipline at EssenceMediacom North. And then for Code, I actually focus on a lot of our organizational change and transformation projects as well, and that's probably why AI for me has been so important, because I think it's kind of one of the key areas of focus for businesses that are looking to kind of optimize and improve their business. And so myself and Kenny have been working and leading on some of the AI adoption across EssenceMediacom, which we'll talk about later, which has gone out globally. And then the fun fact, we've both got a fun fact. So I'm a former Guinness World Record holder. That's me with my toy collection there. So I had the world's largest collection of Transformers. I'll pass over to Kenny.
Well, thanks, Louis. Yeah, so I'm Louis' AI sidekick or counterpart at EssenceMediacom. Yeah, like Louis, really. My about 17 months ago, equally fell in love with AI or generative AI anyway. Largely because of my honest belief that it can help to unlock limited potential across all of the teams that work with our business, and things that aren't getting any easier for anybody working in any industry at the moment. And I think if there's a tool out there that can make people's lives just a little bit better or make them feel more confident doing their job or help them to be more creative, then I think I feel a personal sense of responsibility to make sure that everybody has access to that. Worked in various roles, client side, in a number of different digital transformation roles, and then for the last 6 years came over to the dark side, working at agency side for EssenceMediacom North. Like Louis, I'm also a world record holder. I made the ridiculous decision to row 31 marathons in 31 days in last October to raise money for motor neuron disease. Not something I'll necessarily be doing again. Which actually, and to be fair, as I'm sure some of you know yourselves, getting generative AI taken seriously and rolled out across businesses can feel a little bit like rowing 31 marathons in 31 days at some time.
Yeah, you benefit from having a slightly obsessive streak, which we both had. Cool. So what we're hoping you're going to get from this session, I think when we're thinking about what to cover, like we've done various like webinars and presentations before. I think what's missing out there though is some real practical advice, and that's what we're hoping to get today. So we're going to share with you kind of our experiences on how we've been doing that for our own organisation and how that's been scaling globally, but then also how we're working with other businesses as well. So hopefully it's like real tangible things that you can take some methods, techniques and approaches to implement within your own businesses. So this is what we're going to cover then. So we'll talk very briefly about why adopt generative AI. We hope everyone that's here is a believer and can understand the benefits. We'll talk a bit about some high-level strategic approaches, ways to think about it, then very practically where to start, and then again step into kind of some processes for building tools and applications and embedding those within your teams, and then some Q&A hopefully at the end. So so please, if you just capture any questions that we go, we'll try and capture all, we'll try and cover those towards the end. I suppose first thing, it'd be great just to maybe do a quick share. I think we've probably got some diverse audience. It'd be good to know what everyone would like to get out of this session, actually. So what was it that that made you want to attend today? So do you want to just maybe just post a few things in the chat, and then we can see what people are hoping to achieve. We'll just give that a minute or two.
Don't everybody start at once. Oh, you managed to get the window up.
Right.
That's a great ambition, Amy.
Oh, hi, Shahida. Yeah, I've just recognised that familiar name. Yeah. So we've got a good mix there. Yeah, to confront the typical resistance to AI. That's really interesting. It can be very, very polarizing. We'll talk about that later. Yeah, and then very interesting. Yeah, it's definitely fair to say it's not a silver bullet yet, and so the outputs that we can get by default can lead to some disappointment. And so there's definitely, won't go into too much detail, but about best practice or tips for kind of optimizing tools. But it is absolutely a consideration. We'll talk a bit about some of those other considerations that we need. Accessible and usable for every role. Yeah, absolutely.
How we do, yeah. Yeah, and then definitely agree with trying to trying to tame ChatGPT or any large language model to use English that isn't loaded with superlatives and buzzwords is an ongoing battle for anyone. Brilliant. Okay, perfect. So hopefully we'll do our very best to tick all those boxes and provide some insights throughout today. So
cool. Yeah, so I suppose the only thing to say is, so some of our experience, we've been, Kenny and I have been involved, and we'll talk about this later. There's two elements really. There's a kind of a people and a technology side, and of course, generative AI is a technology, so that's a crucial part of it. And so Kenny and I have been involved in rolling out a tool for EssenceMediacom called Sidekick, and that's absolutely about giving generative AI capabilities to all our people. And at the moment, we're getting close to 4,000 users. We've got quite a good proportion of daily active users. It's been rolled out. Well, it's not fully rolled out. It's serendipitously been accessed in 53 countries to date, and people are using it for generating images and for generating using chat conversations and templates, which we'll talk a bit about later. All their different use cases across different roles really, and for different tasks, and we'll go into that a bit later. But equally, and we do this comes through quite a bit. What we're going to talk about, there's a strong element of engaging our people and actually making sure that people are feeling, can then personally feel the benefits of it, feel engaged with it, feel how it can kind of help them, and that's the way to kind of try and remove kind of those barriers and resistance to adoption and to change. And so Kenny and I literally this last week ran a hackathon session with over 160 people from different media and marketing backgrounds, actually, and that was all about engaging generative AI and then having them even to develop some tools and use cases for their specialism. Cool. So Kenny, do you want to cover why we would adopt generative AI then?
Yeah, perfect. As we're now about 16 months in since ChatGPT or large language models, generative AI was put into the hands of us mere mortals. There are a number of different studies that are now available that start to illustrate the potential of generative AI to help to improve effectiveness and efficiency of teams. Whether it's the Boston Consulting Group identified a 40% performance increase, Nielsen Norman Group 59% more docs per hour. Economic research has identified 14 to 34% increase in productivity. And then we're starting to see in other settings like design, creative work as well. So there are a whole plethora of studies now that identify for any business. It's mentioned on pretty much any earnings calls of any business at the moment, as well as a number one priority for this year. So it is incredibly important. As I said before, things are not getting any slower. So what are the benefits of leveraging AI? So one is it can help people that are very good at what they do already be much faster by speeding up repeatable tasks. Secondly, the value can be identified within capability. So it can extend skills to people that don't have them to be able to draw on them. Or actually it can help to raise caliber and skills in new people. So I think principally for our agency, I could have an executive starting from a paid search perspective, never generated, doesn't have a clue about ad copy or one of our clients, and with a carefully crafted prompt and some very good data, they could generate some search ad copy within about 15 minutes of starting in their job. Think about things like creativity. It's incredibly powerful. I can generate 1,000 ideas in 15 seconds. It never tells me I'm stupid, and it will always, sometimes to a fault, by the way, on that point. And then fourthly is about experience. We're starting to see now an increasing number of businesses and clients looking to enhance the customer experience with generative AI. I think I used the Royal Horticultural Society's app the other day, and then they've got the Chat Botanist in there, which is powered by ChatGPT. Gives me all kinds of advice on how to grow my garden and what type of houseplants and how not to let them die. And ultimately that fuels a high performance culture, happy customers, better products, limitless people, and increased profits. One of the major drivers, I think, because you'll notice yourselves, there's a complete plethora of engagement with generative AI across businesses. What I'm finding is that generally from junior members of team, probably up to kind of senior, kind of middle management to senior management, there's kind of good engagement, but it's still a bit sporadic. But actually, where I'm noticing some of the poorest engagement is in the more senior people across our business. I think there seems to be a misconception that generative AI is a media channel. But the reality of it is that it's going to be the way that we interact with any form of software in the future, whether that's our activators developing ads and activating media, whether it's the way that we use any form of software, whether it's Copilot in Microsoft applications. They believe that we only use 5% of the potential of Microsoft applications at the moment, and generative AI will enable us to access 95%. But you can see it yourself, it's bleeding into every form of software or SaaS that we use. So it's critical for everybody in our business. If you want to maintain the high levels of quality and standards against anyone, whether it's your peers or supporting your teams, learning how to use generative AI is going to be a critical skill. But you can kind of understand a little bit why the reticence is, because AI is a totally new kind of digital species. It isn't something that we've ever engaged with we don't even understand the impact yet, and we're very nascent really in its life cycle, but it is fundamentally going to transform everything that we use on a day-to-day basis. So it is really important that we engage with it.
It was a great TED talk that with Mustafa Suleyman. So yeah, if you get a chance to kind of watch that, and it was his description of what AI is and kind of where it's heading. It's quite fascinating to see that it's something that's going to become just absolutely part of our everyday lives, and in a way that we've not considered before. Cool. So we'll talk about just now some high level strategies now for AI adoption. And I mentioned at the start, and this is like crucial, that there's always two considerations. It's not just a small tool or a piece of technology or a software. There's also the impact that it has, because it's very dramatic, the effect that it has on people. And so it influences kind of skills, processes, ways of working, and therefore culture as well. And so therefore I think it is probably better to think of adopting generative AI as not something trivial. It's not just a case of throwing a new tool in the mix and just expecting that actually everyone now will be sort of AI enabled and AI native, and really it is a form of organizational change, and like with any type of change, I think there is kind of a known response to that change. We know, and this is, I think, very, very truthful with AI. And I think some of the comments people have said that may be experiencing some of that. So initially, if we're going to, the people are seeing kind of these tools come in and they're having an immediate emotional reaction. Some of them might be resistant to adopting these. And so there's the sort of the denial. They may be looking to starting to use the tools, and then actually there's initial frustration or kind of looking to find the faults, and then we dip into sort of the depression and unhappy with what these new things are offering. But then finally, actually, as we start to experiment and we engage and we start to see the benefits, then this again is a very, very known and well-trodden kind of path of adoption, really. So it'd be interesting just to see where people on that adoption curve do we think within your organizations. Maybe just quickly post in the chat, are you at that kind of start? So have we still got people in shock about potentially having to use it, or in denial, or have we got people unhappy that this is being brought in, or are we at the stage of experimenting and starting to see some of the benefits? So maybe just quickly post just one of the headline words just for a minute or so, and we can move on.
Yeah,
that's great. So some people experimenting there. Yeah, interesting point there about some of the tech roles. There's definitely some roles that will potentially be more disruptive than others. I think some of the obvious ones that have immediately happened, I think, are those roles with writing, copywriting, because again, that's for the large language models. That's their core. And as we saw earlier, I think in some of the creative sectors as well, particularly in video game art and illustration, generative AI can produce amazing results there. So you've seen some of the statistics in China. Chinese artists have been huge for working with all the kind of global video games companies, and they've seen a definite hit. Cool. Yeah, using it to cleanse data, brilliant. Okay. So there's definitely a job to be done, and this is why, again, going back to how we may approach change and having that change mindset and thinking people and problem first and not tech first. And I fall foul of this. It's far too easy to get excited and carried away with the tech and just throw the tech at people, hoping they'll see the benefit and see the same excitement you have. But this is where we've got, methods and approaches that we've used for, throughout product development and, and throughout all types of change, really. So taking that design thinking approach and making sure that we're identifying kind of what are the valuable problems, what are the needs of the business or the needs of our end users, and making sure we're building things that are going to address those. So that's the starting point, and then doing that in a human-centered way. So and again, we'll talk about this as we go, but sometimes the top-down sort of direction from an organization or imposing things onto people is not the best way to kind of gauge, to engage and to have them adopt. So bringing in about change through collaborative processes and empowering kind of the co-creation of kind of how they could use these tools is really key there. And then finally, it's not kind of a one-hit wonder. So again, and we've had 20 years of agile working and those agile principles and sort of lean, iterative, feedback-driven approaches to anything that we might do, be that changes in our business or the way that we might roll out software or deliver marketing campaigns. So having that same approach applied to kind of how we're doing here is absolutely going to help. And so there's definitely a need for two ways of approaching this. So top down by the business to decide actually what's the right approach, but then also bottom up for our people to kind of engage and help drive the change and develop the tools and develop kind of the ways of working that's going to help them deliver their role. So in terms of like from a top line from a business, so again, this will vary depending on like the scale of your organization, but really starting off, do we have a clear AI strategy, or does AI align to our existing business strategies is key. And then what we probably would need to do is to make sure actually we've got people whose responsibility this is. I know we want to sort of delegate and engage our workforce, but actually having some people who are responsible overall for that adoption. And then we may need new capabilities. So the big thing is the language of generative AI is prompting, and prompt engineering has become an emerging capability and even an emerging role in some businesses as well. And then finally, we do actually need the platforms to do this. So actually, it's then for the organisation to help provide the tools and the technology to enable our people to be able to do that. All of these have elements of kind of risks or challenges or kind of or considerations, and it's probably worth saying I'm very, very much an AI optimist, but it's absolutely that there are, it's not a silver bullet yet, but these are things that are being addressed constantly by all the AI platforms, and there's ways that we can approach the adoption within our organizations and in the way that we doing the implementation to make sure that we can be addressing some of these.
I think it's safe to say in it, or from my experience, it reminds me very much of 10, 15 years ago when any business that you worked in had to have a digital strategy. In order to ensure that the business was transforming from traditional practices over to digital, it was like we needed a digital strategy, we needed a digital steering group, and what that enabled you to do, or enabled an organization to do, was to create equity for digital, ensuring that it was constantly at the top of the agenda, that it was invested in more than some other areas, and I guess valuing its contribution to the future. I think we're very much in that camp with AI now. It maybe won't take 10 years to have total AI transformation based on the pace that we're moving at, but I definitely think for at least the next 2 or 3 years that our business will need an AI strategy in the place of digital if it's going to drive real change.
Yeah, and some of these issues that we have now, so hallucinations is where the AI presents completely incorrect information back. A lot of those can be mitigated by utilizing our own data. So if we're using like the raw large language models, often they're called the foundational models, then we're subject to their limitations, but furnishing the AI with our own data, and so and that data doesn't need to be complex. This could be our operating practices, our ways of working, etc. Just all our operating guides. I think that's that can actually help to produce better results and better outputs for our people. So I won't go into too much depth, but absolutely, I think there's ongoing copyright and IP issues. And so picking the right tools, and many providers are coming out and they're ensuring that their tools are absolutely legal and copyright safe. There's the bias that's addressed constantly, with AI is trained on the internet, and the internet is populated by human beings and have their own biases, so it's picking those up. But I think all the base models are addressing that continually, but there's things that we can do as well to address that in the way that we're using the AI and asking it to make sure that we're getting diverse and inclusive responses. And then equally, like with the hallucinations, which I've talked about, there's been some very high profile mistakes that have kind of made headline news. But again, thinking about the tools that we adopt and the approaches that we take, and there's different ways of making sure that we're utilizing our data to train the model that would reduce hallucinations. And then just the final one is just something that every business needs to think about, and it's like the ethical consideration. So it is quite easy to be carried away by the benefits, but thinking about actually what that might mean for our teams and our workforce and the changing nature of the work that we do. So I think that's a key consideration. And then we start to see for the first time, this is very, very recent, I think Google being an absolute pioneer and continues to drive AI. They are now penalizing AI content spam, so that one of the latest algorithm updates as of March. So again, it's more considerations for ways to be using AI to create our content, drive our marketing activities in an ethical way that is aligned, I think, to sort of the principles of Google and sort of the big companies. So the other thing, so that was the top down, but then also thinking about bottom up, because for many organizations, they've not provided that kind of strategy and guidance. And so people aren't waiting around for their business to tell them how and where they should be using AI. And so what we're seeing, and the thing that we're advocating is, okay, so from the bottom up, I think our people can start to drive that engagement. We're seeing the forming of people that are interested in that, being champions within their organization, running hackathons and events to kind of engage the wider team, having regular meetups, shared repositories of kind of their learnings and the tools that they're using, identifying pilot projects so that actually we can just start to utilize some of the tools and approaches like immediately on the work that we're doing, and then talking and sharing those successes at different company events and team events, etc. So the next thing is, okay, so this all sounds great, but like where do we start? Where are these kind of, what are these use cases that I think are gonna help us do things differently and better?
Perfect. So what we're going to do, as Louis said then, there isn't a playbook, a rule book, a blueprint. There seems to be like a common standard for how to be an AI revolutionary in the modern age and drive change across your business. So what we've got is that we're going to share a series of different practices here that you will be able to take away and start to use and build on and innovate. But the truth is the change will come from the people that are joining this call at the end of the day. It's really easy to drown in the amount of opportunity, right? It is overwhelming, the volume of use cases for generative AI, literally absolutely everything. And from our perspective, it's about starting with thinking about what the business goals are and what the success is. So taking all of those different use cases, all of the opportunities, starting to think about what is actually from a top-down perspective going to make a difference for us. So is it about increasing revenue, so better marketing and customer engagement? Is it about decreasing costs, so increased levels of automation? Is it about efficiency, being quicker at what we do around workflows and people? Or is it about gaining competitive advantage in terms of new products, services, or service offerings? A key point to start is kind of which function or department to begin with. Again, this is there to say, look, there is a whole wide range of things and areas that AI can benefit. So it's worth thinking about where to start, but also it's about not ignoring the opportunities that are away from purely sales and marketing, because it can absolutely have a benefit in HR, research and development. These are some functions that hit every single element of the business. Where we get started is we identified the kind of is your macro business use cases. So from a top-down perspective, what is it that we think is going to make the biggest difference to the performance of the business? So is it about developing efficient workflows? Is it about engineering and data processing? I think we've seen a whole range of different examples about how we use it. Is it about giving employees access to knowledge, making it very easy to query the information that we have within the business, and bring it to life for different people, accessing the value of that intelligence, right through to things like translation and language services. And from our experience, we've seen value in each of these different areas. It's then about starting to prioritize your use cases. So thinking about how do you define value? So is it about the amount of revenue something could generate, how much money it could physically save, the number of people in the business that it impacts? If it's really powerful, but it only affects 1% of the workforce, then it's not going to deliver scale value. And also how much time is physically involved in the task versus how much time it might save. And I think from your perspective, you would naturally prioritize that. Thinking about things like big bets, what are the no-brainers? What are things that impact few people and don't add a massive amount of value? They would go into the no-bother section. And the ones that are really, really valuable, I find, is things like the quick wins, where we've seen some of the best use cases in our business is where we've been working on a task or we've been doing a piece of work and instantly you've managed to execute and develop an AI use case that can be used in the moment. They've been incredibly powerful, rather than some of the big bets that don't necessarily immediately add value. They're quite complex. You're not necessarily sure whether they're going to 100% work.
Yeah, and then just a way of again being able to articulate what we're doing, why we're doing it, and the impact we expect it to have. So again, just utilizing just the hypothesis format is great for that, because it kind of keeps us honest and makes us be really clear about and setting expectations to the business about what are the outcomes we expect to have, and then even thinking about the measures and being very honest and practical about actually we'll know this has worked when we have measured X, Y, or Z. So the hypothesis format is a great way of kind of capturing and describing those.
Perfect. And then this is a bottom-up approach. So you've kind of got the top-up one, which is the top-down one, sorry, which is the big AI use case that can benefit our people. But again, what we have found from our experience is the people that are the most what's the word for it, qualified to identify how AI can make a difference is the people that are doing the job on a day-to-day basis. So this is a session that we've run with our teams across every discipline in our business to try and understand how they might be able to physically use AI. So we start off with capturing and prioritizing the micro use cases. So we kind of spend 10 minutes, we get everybody into a group and we just map out the high level workflow in their teams. So we get them into a team and then we ask them, like, what are the constituent parts of what they do on a day-to-day basis in their job? What is it? So coming from a brief, the different steps through to closure. As an example here for an email campaign, the brief comes in, we could create a brief analyzer. Then you've got to think about research. So what data analysis could we do as part of that? Then you think creatively from an email perspective, generate some ideas. You've then got to write the content. We then got to generate some A/B variations. Producing it, you've got to generate some images, you've then got to build the email, and then finally you get it sent, and then you can analyze the journey, things like personalization. So just as a simple task like an email, we get them to break everything down into individual parts. We challenge the teams to try and keep things in mind around what are really good micro use cases. So things that are repetitive tasks, things that take time, analyzing data, creating content, generating ideas, a training aid, and also not overcooking it. So not trying to change the world with a single use case, but focusing on something small that adds meaningful value. We then get the teams to kind of work together as part of a group. They're going for 5 minutes, and what they essentially do then is just grab a dot vote, grab some dots, and then do a dot voting system, and then they pick their priority use case. And then ultimately we get them to work together in a group over, say, 30 minutes. We get them to think about what the goal is. We then get them to create the steps. So the goal is, we want to break down a challenge into it. This is an example of something that we actually did around a prompt we built that enables the teams to transcribe any conversation with a client or an internal coaching conversation into a grow model. So what are the goals, reality, way forward, and options? And we completely break that down. So what are the steps? What's the inputs? What are the outputs? And then physically, what are the rules? And then this is just some examples of that. We then build that out into a prompt. This is all of the different workflows that we've got. This was a session we ran with over 15 teams from across the business, representing every discipline, where we simply mapped out their workflows. We got them to pull the different constituent parts and then vote for the value. We even got them to estimate how long it takes to complete some of the different tasks, so that we could help to prioritize those different areas. And do you want to take this one?
Yeah, cool. Yeah. So yes, so there's quite a bit of thought goes into making sure we're identifying the right things, and things that are either the businesses recognise these are where we're going to get the biggest value, or our people are recognise actually these are going to help speed us up and help us do our work quicker or better. And then how do we then roll that out really? So from those use cases, we engage a team to start to build them. We run sort of pilots and experiments, and then we iterate, and then finally actually when we're happy with that, we sort of scale and roll that out. And I'll step through some of these steps now really. So the first one is developing kind of those pilot use cases, what we call a tiger team. So a tiger team is really can be as small as a team of 2. So really what we need is 2 people in the mix. We need the use case expert. So depending on what the task is, who is the specialist that we have in the room there? And that could be like the expert practitioner, the person that has all the domain knowledge and the expertise of the thing that we're looking to make better with AI. And it's important they've got an operational understanding of how that task or that activity works within the organization. And we pair them with then the prompt engineer. So we need someone that actually understands generative AI, has the prompting expertise, understands the tools that we may use or the systems, and how that we can actually translate that person's capabilities into a tool that a wider group of people can use. And so what we actually look to do is, and the thing that I kind of find kind of comical but very, very true, really what we're looking to do is almost like capture the thought process of that expert practitioner. So when they begin their task, what are the inputs, the things that they think about that go into that? What's the thought process, the cognition, the steps that they would personally go through, and then what do their quality outputs look like? And actually we found some of the best things, the best input you can give generative AI is being clear on the format and structure of the output that you want it to achieve. So a great starting point is to find your best practice outputs and then feed that to the AI. That gives it really good guidance on how it should follow. And so from there, so once we understand actually how a human person approaches that, we would then develop the prompt. We run some calibration, actually the output that we get in, how does that compare with actually the existing manual way? And then we can roll that out to the team, gather feedback, iterate before we then fully scale that out across the business. So we've got the team in place. It's then the big task is, we've not talked really about technology yet. We've got to make sure we're picking the right tools to match the use case. And these can be very varied because depending on what the work is, actually generative AI can kind of help across lots of different media formats, really. Which is why it's incredibly powerful for marketing teams. And there's lots of the tools there which you're probably very familiar with. There's the very, very high profile ones, of course, ChatGPT or Copilot or Gemini. Some of the lesser known ones that are really powerful, Perplexity and Anthropic, Claude, as well as some of the image gen. And then on the far right hand side, these are kind of where the real innovations are coming from, particularly around video and sound and music. So if you've not had a play, there's tools like Suno and Udio that are amazing kind of song generators now. So there's a whole variety of different media that we can create. Quite often, I think, again, this will vary dramatically depending on the scale of your business or your teams adopting it. Sometimes it can be as a starter. The easiest thing is we can just use tools like ChatGPT. I think it's great, or even Gemini. And some of these are free. There's free variations of Copilot, which is effectively just ChatGPT behind the scenes. And then for image generation, there are amazing free tools. There's within Copilot has image generation, or there's tools like Ideogram, or for very, very low monthly fees, we've got amazing tools like Midjourney and Leonardo. But again, it depends on your needs of your business and the needs of your team. If those were to scale up, there's kind of more advanced tools that are available. The previous tools were all what we would call foundational models, so they deliver kind of the base AI functionality. But then there's some specialist tools that have emerged that are really focused on specific tasks. So things like Jasper and Copy AI or SEMrush, they're all very focused on marketing teams and have got lots of embedded templates and tools that are very specific to those teams. And then as we really start thinking about the enterprise and we start to scale out, so people, of course, like Microsoft and Google are thinking about how it's embedded in all their tools. But then what we start to face, though, is we do face a scaling challenge. And so, you know, it's fine if we've got teams of maybe up to 20 or 30 people for whom have a monthly license fee. But if we now start to talk about teams of hundreds or thousands of people, then actually monthly license fees don't scale in the same way. And that's where lots of organizations are now building proprietary platforms, and one of those is Sidekick that Kenny and I have mentioned, and that's kind of how we're scaling out AI to 10,000 people across EssenceMediacom globally, is kind of through our own proprietary tool. And so each of these have their own considerations, and again, you'd need to engage with your legal team, because some of these may be depending on kind of the contracts that you have with your customers and on your organization's kind of legal policies. And again, there's a whole host of considerations when we think about perhaps if we are developing our own tools, what we may use behind the scenes to kind of power those and the different options available. So then the next thing then, so engaging teams. So we've talked about target teams for those use cases. We've talked about picking the right tools. How do we engage our people? So I think Kenny and I have been running many of our kind of the hackathons, and I think we found these are sort of the best ways for getting people excited, getting people learning about generative AI, starting to engage with kind of prompt engineering. And we've done that by setting a brief, which is purposely like really challenging, but teams have got to really go hell for leather to achieve that. But then they're always blown away by what they've been able to achieve, really.
And this has generally been refined as, I would say, our best structure, wouldn't you? So starting off with some landscape stuff around what's happened, getting everybody to ground zero, a bit of the prompting work. The really powerful bit is creating a challenging brief. So if you think about a task or a massive mission that you might have to do on a day-to-day basis, like launch and market a product or transform something from X to Y, and you give them a very short space of time with which to do it, and the only way they can do it is with Gen AI, and then throw in lots of fun, generating images, team names. We even had the group on Friday writing songs using Suno AI, and I think actually they're a brilliant team building day as much as they are educational and informative. There's loads of great resources. These are increasing all the time now. The deep learning AI one in the middle here is really good. It's quite a short course, about an hour and a half. And it is probably the least dry and most informative. But if you want something incredibly advanced, the Bible of prompting and generative information is learnprompting.org. Get experimenting. That is the best advice I could give to anyone at any point in any business, is use it all of the time for anything from personal things like creating a menu, exercise plans, or recipes. I actually use ChatGPT to write the training plan for the rowing. Use it for everything at work. What I will say is that it will take you a little bit longer in the first instance, because it's not about saving time, it's about exploring. But the more you use it, the more you understand where the edges are, and you'll start to get a much better grasp of the value of it and the power of it. And ultimately, you're going to have to become the expert in the business on this. So the more you know, the quicker the business will move. So then, capturing knowledge and reusable prompts and tools. Prompts are obviously incredibly important, and as we learn more about prompting, these prompts are becoming much more vast. So I think in our business, we've got 200 plus now in EssenceMediacom Sidekick, in terms of these are the templates that we use. And there's use cases, as we said, across every discipline. So finding a place for you to store that, I guess, IP and knowledge, so that it can be readily accessed by anybody across the business, is really important. And not everybody, you don't have to have a tool like EM Sidekick or a giant platform. We used a tool when we first started, didn't we, called Notion or Airtable. And within that, we categorized all of our prompts by the types of prompts, so change, CRM, growth strategies. We then had within that the descriptions, the prompts, the different parameters, which made it really easy for people to access and then use the prompt and understand how to use it on a day-to-day basis. And then, yeah, those templates essentially can be used all day, every day. This is just an example of some of the ones that we've got within Sidekick that people can access. But then it's about never stopping, isn't it? It's a never-ending journey in reality.
Yeah, and so up to where we are now. So how do we kind of carry on and make sure that this is embedded back to that notion of like embedded change? And so what we need, as with any product development or any kind of major transformation within a business, we want to make sure that we've got that direction, the clear direction, and kind of clear evolution of conscious evolution of where we're heading and the technology, making sure we're always building in the latest tools. Like generative AI changes weekly. The amount of kind of new innovations is incredible. So we need to make sure that we're staying on top of that technology evolution as well. And then the capabilities. So it's not just a tool in the hands of a few. And what we've found the best, we've had the best results is when we've engaged a wider group of people to be helping build the tools via some of the hackathons and the sessions that we've ran, identifying those champions with our business, the people that really get AI and want to engage with AI, and having them help build the tools. So that's when like our platform scaled out from having just a handful of tools to starting to have like hundreds of tools that are helping everybody every day, and then just having a constant focus on that rollout and enablement. So making sure that we're engaging everybody, that you're providing the training, and some people need more hand holding than others. Make sure we're providing kind of all the assets and materials. But again, these are things that need that kind of constant attention. And again, there's these aren't necessarily new things. So the way that we've manage our products actually in creating like roadmaps and backlogs, it's the same way that we can kind of track our rollout progress as well as our technology progress. So cool. So I think this is probably the final thing. So just to recap, this is kind of bringing it all together, really. So bringing together, how the organization might think from a top-down approach to kind of a bottom-up way in terms of getting engaged. So let's start with, what is our AI strategy? How do we synchronize AI with kind of the strategies we've got in our business? Who ultimately is going to help deliver and drive this? And we talk about that AI governance or leadership team, and what are the roles that we have, or the skills of the people that we need to kind of help get that going. And then it's about, as we've said, being clear on the goal. What do we want it to do? What would that success look like? What are those early use cases, either those big macro use cases that we said that might be something big and transformational for the business, or some of those micro use cases that can help our people every day. Let's build them out. Let's test those. We'll run pilots. We'll naturally get feedback and we'll iterate. And then once we've got to a certain stage, we can then look at actually then our bigger investments and sort of the bigger considerations. So what are our big platforms or tools that we're going to roll out? What are our legal policies? And we need to engage with kind of our wider business to make sure we've got clarity on that. And then, of course, actually, if we're, at a business level, we're rolling out kind of training and adoption, we're starting to kind of engage the wider organization doing that now. And then from there on, it's, it never stops. And I suppose this is the point, really. And I think Gen AI is not stopping, literally, as, Kenny and I have said, from a year, 18 months ago, when we first started, the level of change that we're seeing is phenomenal. And the innovations that we're seeing every week are incredible. So how do we keep building on those use cases? How do we keep rolling them out to more people, building more of those? How do we make sure we're engaging those champions and these communities that we've got, so people are also kind of continually developing themselves and developing how their teams are using AI, and then for the business, how are we monitoring and evaluating the success and making sure that we keep pivoting.
And one other piece of advice, I think, is this is a journey of snakes and ladders. Sometimes you'll feel like everything's going really well and you've got loads of buy-in, and then other days it'll be really tough because you've got a load of challenges and people aren't necessarily listening to what the benefits are, and you're not making as much progress as you want. I would find a partner in crime. That is my absolute advice. Where we see the greatest success in any function, and from our own personal experience, I think having a partner in crime does help to keep you sane. It helps you to have somebody to bounce ideas off. When things are tough, you keep each other positive. And as you can see from this, there's quite a lot of work for very few people to complete, to drive the change, depending upon how big you want to make it. So that would be my my counsel as well.
And are you my partner in crime?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Cool. Right. So just to wrap up then, so if you're engaging kind of your business leaders, then what are kind of some of the key questions that we've got here? So yeah, getting them to think about, okay, let's step into what AI can really do, and are there some of those bigger business challenges we've got that we're kind of struggling to achieve currently? These are kind of how we'll kind of get buy-in from the top. Also, how can AI support like the overall business strategy? Like we've talked about AI adoption itself being a strategy, but actually how can it help with what our business is doing currently? And so making sure it's baked into kind of the things that we're all focused on already. Being clear on asking actually what is the return on investment we can expect to get from AI, and over what period, and being realistic actually that if we're going to adopt all these tools and kind of processes and change our ways of working, over what time frame is feasible for us to see the benefit. And then ultimately, what do we think of some of the KPIs along along every step of the journey, really, so that we can kind of measure how well we're doing. And then finally, just kind of asking the questions about the risks with AI. And I think we've talked about some of those without dwelling, but there are lots of considerations. And we're part of a huge global organization. We're incredibly well governed in terms of kind of our policies on using AI, and even down to kind of the tools that are that are green lit for us to use. So so again, that's a kind of question to make sure we're engaging our leaders on. I suppose the only last thing to say is actually, if you want some help, so we're doing lots of this within our own organization and helping other organizations. And the things that we can help with, if you want, is we'll gladly come and help talk to kind of some of your senior leaders about the state of AI and what AI could do for them. We would love to kind of run some of your hackathons for you. They're great fun. We've found we've got such engagement with that, and they usually kind of are the kind of like the trigger for kind of a lot of businesses to go on and start embedding AI. We can then actually help working with some of your leaders around some of those bigger top-down approaches and bigger business use cases. Help you define like your strategy. Then at a more practical level, actually, we can sort of work with your teams on sort of the prompting, and the prompt masterclass is something really useful that we can help with. So actually, how can we be leveraging and creating AI in the best way? And then also kind of helping define some of those use cases, and if needed, then finally even like the technical implementation. So Code have a team of 30+ engineers, and so so we can actually help with some of that tech rollout and enablement as well. Cool. So I think that's perfect timing. We've got last 10 minutes for questions. Yeah.
I've got one, Louis.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. That's terrific. I guess coming back to I think the third point in the wrap up there was about return investment modeling, I think.
Yeah.
Like clearly you can do things around cost saving or time saving within the process. Is there a way you can also apply it to revenue generation ideas and things that you haven't yet, road tested properly, such that how do you start to create ROIs around things that you haven't yet done? I guess is the question.
Yeah, that's a very good and tricky question.
And if you haven't got if there's no clear answer, that's also fine.
I suppose from our personal experience, I guess once we start, it'll be much easier once we start getting into experience-based generative AI applications. When they're starting to aid the conversion journey or the support in retention, then it'll be much easier to put a monetizable value against it. I suppose the bit that we're going to start to, it's being used mostly is by our strategy and planning teams, and obviously the work that comes out of those teams for our clients is generally revenue generating activities, and I think we'll probably end up taking a much more qualitative approach to that. So I think contacting people about their experiences of using generative AI, and our mantra as a business is breakthroughs, right? So for us it'll be, if we do a breakthrough for a client, they get great performance, they acquire customers, etc. So I think the more we can relate the tool in our context, which is strategy and planning, to breakthroughs and therefore revenue for clients, that is how we would start to create a kind of approximate revenue uplift of the tool and the value that it's adding from things like creativity, I guess, or extending capabilities.
Yeah, and the thing that's easier to calculate is if we can save our, and the thing that we've been focused on is saving our people time. If we can save our people time, that's not just about a cost saving. Actually, that's about then actually making sure that their time is being spent in the most effective way. You know, time is our, is our most precious resource within all our businesses. And I think we know we probably all waste so much time on busy work, and generative AI can help take away some of that. So actually what it can do is we can allow our people to do more with the time they have. That should directly translate into, into more, better results and more income for businesses.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jack.
Amy's asked a question. What do you think the consequences of not adopting AI now will be in the future? Devastating, world ending, Amy. No, look, I think the business landscape is increasingly competitive. And I think let's just pick something like, I'll use development as an example, right? If you've got agency A can operate, or their teams are all using generative AI, right, for 50% of the coding tasks that they do, and therefore they can deliver things half the price than a single agency in half the time, right? And then both people are then pitching for a client's business. Which agency is going to win? The one that handcrafts, traditionally codes, or the agency that can execute twice as fast for half the cost? I think so. In that instance, for a development business, actually, it puts you under immense pressure, and it'll provide a chance. I think business sustainability in the future is going to be critical there. You look at us as, I guess, again, as an agency, as a media agency, right? Our clients want things in half the time. They're pushing for us to reduce SLAs, not increase them. And again, if agility is important to them, and we've got an agency that can generate 100 ideas using structural knowledge that are good ideas for a client, and they can do it in seconds, versus an agency that wasn't using generative AI, and they're going to charge a 20 grand consultancy fee to have everybody in a room to generate those ideas, which agency is the client going to pick in reality? Or even at an individual employee level, if you're going for a job interview, I think this is going to become an increasingly asked question now, is what's your experience of using generative AI to do your day-to-day jobs? And you've got employee A that's proficient in using it, can work really fast, has upskilled all their teams in generative AI, versus employee B, again, that's more traditional, not massively experimented with AI and doesn't have the experience of it. Again, which employee is the business going to pick? The one that can do twice as much in half the time. I'm not saying ethically, by the way, that's 100% great or ideal, but I think that is very much the reality that we're facing from individuals and companies. I hope that answers the question.
Cool. And we've got a couple more that have come in there. Taking the bottom one, what's the best approach of getting others on board that aren't so positive about using it as I am? The best way that we've found is when people start to have a positive experience, that changes their perception. And so running some of the sessions that we've had, I think everybody has come out of those sessions when they've engaged and they've felt their first-hand experience the benefit. And also we're really, really keen to make the point that the AI isn't there to replace people, it's there to kind of help make their lives easier. And when they experience that firsthand, then that's when we're seeing people change their mindset and become more advocates as well.
There's two things in it. I think Louis right, there's hearts and minds, right? So there's inspiring people and getting them to realize that this is a real thing. The second one, come back to that killer use case point. I think if you can find a killer use case that people can actually engage with across the broader business, and it saves them, it actually does something that benefits them, it can have a massive impact on their sense of engagement and belief and understanding. I'll just give you one practical example. We moved our HR system over to something called CultureAmp. And then as part of that, our end of year process became massively convoluted. Instead of having like aggregated insights for people, you have a massive big long list of verbatim feedback, and they gave us a week to turn it around. So what we did was we built a tool in Sidekick that took all of that verbatim feedback, they just chuck it in, and it creates an incredibly rich personal development review for the individuals, strengths, weaknesses. It reads between the lines, coaching tips for the manager, peer and upward feedback, etc. And so instantly we then communicate that out across the business, and it became the most used tool. So the CEO of our company who hadn't engaged with it phones me up on a Monday morning saying, I've got all of my personal development reviews to do. How do I log into Sidekick? And everybody across the business used it at every level across the business. So that is a prime example. If you can find something everyone can use and play with, and it's a bit idiot proof and easy to access, that can have a big impact too.
And there's probably the last couple there. There was a question about risk analysis and mitigation through AI. So not sure if I understand the question right, but AI can have a role, because what AI is brilliant at, and the automation element of it, is capturing things that people can't see. Yeah, so capturing things that people can't see, and so so things like for finance systems, automation around finance systems, finding errors, perhaps finding problems within our data, assessing perhaps potential issues with our data. The whole suite of things actually that AI can do, and it's the things that can be missed by a human. So in terms of, again, depending what we're looking for, where the risk might be, it can definitely have a role to play in that. And then probably the final one, I think we're at time. Yeah, we're just at time. This final one, so some of the questions above: when you have an organization that's already going through change, how do you ensure Gen AI is seen positively? So I think absolutely just playing on the benefits. So AI will be a key part of any kind of should be a key part of any transformation project, be that a technical or kind of an operational transformation. I think, as we've hopefully demonstrated today, it can play a role in all functions and disciplines within an organization, and actually it can benefit anyone almost at any level. And so I think now, and it's come out of nowhere, in truth. Maybe a year ago we weren't having the same conversation, but now it kind of should be key to any of those kind of transformation strategies, I think, within any business.
Cool.
Well, right.